Hi, my name is Keri Barnum. I am the director of New Shelves Books, and today I am here with Alan Gibson, my good friend and author and conference director and all of the things. He's multi-talented. And today we are going to be talking about the importance of writers' conferences and the importance of really having a community of authors, because that's why we're here today.
Exactly.
Is we are here for the Manuscript to Marketplace conference here in Shepherdstown, West Virginia. And how did that get started, Alan? How did you?
Well, you know, it's funny. We're going to be talking about conferences, and there's so many connections between why you're here. You're here because we're putting on a conference, and we need people like you to present. But you're also here because I met you and Amy Collins at a conference.
Yes.
And so, you know, it's all just a full circle. And that was years ago. This was in Dublin. And I think it was probably 3 or 4 years, 4 or 5 years ago.
2018, maybe. It's been a while.
I've been to a couple of them, but yeah. And that's how we got connected. And then, of course, I was a client of yours for many years.
Many years,
You just helped me in so many ways. I didn't know what I was doing at the beginning at all. You know, so many people that I've met subsequently, you know, you write a book, you self-publish it in some manner, and then you think, now I need an agent or I need a publisher or something like that. But, you know, there's just so much that we need from people like you to really do it right. So I did everything wrong first time.
Right. Well, and I always say you don't know what you don't know.
Exactly.
And that is really the thing, is that if you don't know, you just don't have any idea. And that's what I love about conferences, is because you have a whole connection of people. And even though we have Zoom and we have things like Free Advice Friday and classes, there's something about being dedicated to writing at the same time, where everyone's together, you're learning together, you're disconnected. I almost always, I forget my phone, I'm not checking emails.
Exactly, right. You're into it.
You're into it. And it's a type of connection that's just so very different. And I always end up sitting in at least one session that I go, I'm not very interested in that. And then that's my favorite. That's the one where I learn things. And so I think that is really important. And to have these conferences in places that you don't really expect, like Shepherdstown, West Virginia.
Right.
I'll be honest, I'd never heard of Shepherdstown before I met Alan.
Well, it is the oldest city in West Virginia. We have that going for us.
See?
But actually, we're for those of you that aren't familiar with it, we're about an hour and 15 minutes from Washington, D.C. We're right on the Potomac River, so that runs right through Washington. And so a lot of the people that moved here or had lived here were former Washington people.
Yes.
So we have a lot of State Department people and ex-spies and a lot of interesting people, but it's also an amazing hub of writers. There's just an extraordinary number of people here who are published on a variety of levels.
Well, and I grew up on Nora Roberts.
Oh.
I was sneaking my mom's Nora Roberts novels when I was like 10.
And she's 11 minutes from here.
She is. She has a whole bookstore and everything. Nora Roberts is right down the road.
We should go there. I'll take you. Yeah. I've done 3 book signings with her.
I know. And I fangirled for you.
I know. She is not only is she prolific and one of the most successful authors maybe ever, she is really generous with her fortune, but also with her writers community. And she always opens her doors at these book signings, which are magnificent affairs. I mean, people are lined up around the blocks. And hundreds of people line up waiting for her to sign their latest book. And they've been there maybe 25 times before. But so she shares her audience with people like me. And so we sit in tables and they come and buy our books and we sign. It's really fun. I mean, she's amazing. She's truly amazing.
Well, and again, I think that's part of that community of coming together and learning things. So when you kind of started this conference, I know we have some amazing speakers here this weekend. We have Jane Friedman. And we have Robin Cutler and
Stephen Spotswood.
Thank you. I'm here, obviously. So, but when you're kind of looking at a conference, either to book speakers or deciding if you want to go, we were just talking about another conference we'll be at later this year.
Mhm.
What do you look for? What do you think other authors should look for?
Well, this conference was kind of my brainchild. I'll have to take credit for that. I have a huge, fabulous committee that makes it possible. But I went to a conference in Dublin, which is where I met your friend Amy Collins. And frankly, I was terrified. I didn't know if I should even go to a writer's conference. I just self-published this book and I knew it was a great story and everything, but I thought, wow, I got this book, but I don't think of myself as an author or a writer. And I thought, what's it going to be like? Are they going to make me read from my book? Am I going to be humiliated? Is there going to be anybody at my level? And you know, I almost didn't go. I don't know. I just sort of Googled and found this Dublin conference. And I thought, well, you know, and I could go.
It's such an Alan thing to go. I Googled the conference and I decided from West Virginia over to Dublin.
Yeah. Well, you know, what I did was I called Lawrence O'Brien, who's the, you know, the founder of it. And I talked to him. I said, is this for me? I told him where I was. He said, absolutely. This is exactly what you need. And, you know, it was. And so I wanted to create something over here that was along those lines. And so to answer your roundabout way to answer your question, we created this to be success strategies and insider advice for writers at any level. We want to make this available to people who have an idea for a book, they're not sure how to put it on paper, or people that are like halfway through, now what do I do? And then, you know, and then there's a whole bunch of people that think they finished a book and should I get an agent? Should I get a publisher? What do I do now?
What next?
Yeah. And so there's so many unknowns. And frankly, this is a very murky business for most people. I mean, they just don't know. It's not just writing a book. That's the easy part, really. I know.
That's what
not
many
to underplay that.
Yeah, well, the marketing and going through the waters. And I think one of the things that I really appreciate about conferences is, especially this conference, is that we are literally talking about everything from traditional publishing and pitching agents all the way through self-publishing,
right,
and giving people all the information. I think that's one of the things that is hard about being an author in today's world, is that everyone's pushing their own specialty.
Right.
Well, I'm an agent, so traditional publishing is the only way to go. And that's not really true. And so conferences like this give a fair playing field to all of the different opportunities, so that you can really learn what's right for you.
And I know one of your workshops that you're going to do at this conference is what path is right for you.
Right.
You may not be ready for a traditional publisher, or maybe you are. We don't know. I mean, you know, that's the time will tell.
Sure.
So that is really the nuts and bolts of why we do this. And we, of course, we do have workshops on craft, and but on every stage. And then the other thing about this particular conference, I mean, there's a lot of them. We know there's a lot of wonderful writers' conferences, and I love them and you love them, but many of them are giants, like the London Book Fair.
Yes, they're very big.
And, you know, if you're a new writer with no network of anybody in the business, you can go to one of those things and it's okay, but you come back, you're still alone. You haven't made any, you know, real connections. So this particular conference, I keep very intimate. We have a cap on attendees. And so not only do you get to hear people like you and Jane Friedman and Robin Kotler, but you get to have lunch with them and meet with them and talk with them. Yeah, chat with them. And you get to meet other authors who are maybe at your stage, or maybe they're successful, or maybe they're somewhere in between, but you get to make these connections. And that's what we offer that a lot of the big ones can't offer.
Right. And one of the things, and that's a good point. Some people like the big conferences. Sure. We were just talking about 20 Books Vegas, which we're going to in November, which is a week-long, I mean, it's at Bally's Conference Center in Las Vegas. It's huge. I think they cap out at 3,500 attendees. So it's huge, and that's fun. It's got a lot to offer, a lot of energy, diversity, but especially starting out when you don't know anybody. Because here's the thing, as a writer, it's not too often where you go, oh, well, I have a friend who's also writing a book. let's go together.
Yeah.
Usually when you start off, you're kind of wandering in
alone, right.
alone. You might have a little imposter
And it's
syndrome.
very intimidating.
It is.
Very.
It is.
And if you're not a natural, go-getter at a conference or something like that, you can just sort of be lost, and it maybe doesn't give you the kind of value that you thought you would get.
Right.
But these huge conferences also bring incredible value. I mean, they
Mhm.
all
It's
have,
just
they all
different.
offer, but it's
Different
something
value.
different. Yeah. Now, my going to the one in Las Vegas is going to be different because I'm going to be, with a publisher, because I
Right.
now have a publisher, and so that'll be different than just sort of walking in and enjoying this
Right.
conference. But
Yes.
yeah. So.
Well, and I do think, and another thing is that when you're looking for a conference, are you looking for craft? Are you looking for something specific? Are you looking for something in genre? Because a lot of the writers' conferences are in genre. I've been to the romance writers, mystery writers, and exactly, which are very kind of focused. Not that anyone couldn't enjoy them, but they're very focused on that specific piece of the puzzle. So finding something that's either broad enough that you can fit into it, or something very specific.
And we do cover. This year, we're not covering, but we are addressing poetry for the first time. Nonfiction. We have a guy that's talking about writing business books, which we know is a huge successful.
Especially if you have a business that you're marketing. I mean, that is why people write business books, is to market their business. It's not usually to make a #1 Times bestseller. Big money book. It's something that pushes their business forward, and sometimes it goes big, and it's another lucrative business.
Well, I know it's an income stream for him, so I don't know exactly where, but
exactly.
No, so we have that nonfiction, we have poetry, we have memoir this year, which is going to be fun, and then 10 steps to writing a novel, that kind of stuff that everybody loves to go to. And then Jane is going to talk, has another workshop on the sort of this changing landscape of publishing, and that it's not just for print anymore, and so on and so forth.
Right.
So
yeah, I think that's fantastic. Now, if you guys, do we have a link to the conference? We do. We've gotten a couple questions, Alan.
Okay.
#1, do we have a link to the conference? Which we can get and put into the chat. But also we've had a lot of questions. Is this going to be virtual at all, or is it all in person? It
is all in person, and it is designed to be in person, because really the reason for this is to get people together. And, thank God we're finally together after 2 years of not having this conference. And during those 2 years of COVID, we did not go virtual. Actually, if you type in Writers Conference SU up there, you'll see the link right away. It'll pop up.
Well,
Writers Conference started.
There we go.
Yeah, that's the link.
I'm just grabbing you guys the link. And then we're on Alan's computer.
We're not on Alan's computer. We're in Alan's office doing this. So yeah,
I love it. I don't know how to copy and paste on your computer.
Oh, okay, I can do that for you. C, copy, and then where's
Alan uses a Mac, and I do not.
Paste.
Perfect.
Voila.
And then we'll actually, I think we didn't send
everyone.
it to
everyone.
everyone.
We wanted to send
All
it.
right, try again.
Paste it again. All right.
So in case you ever wondered if I also have tech issues, today is the prime example of how many tech issues I do have. And you too, can publish your own book.
I want to get back to one point that we were talking about, and that's getting presenters at your conference. And you kind of alluded to it before we went on the program here. Everybody that speaks at my conference, and I'm calling it my conference, I don't mean to, but the one that I'm responsible, I feel responsible for it.
Your baby.
Anyone that speaks here is somebody that I've vetted. I know them, because believe me, I'm sure your audience knows there are sharks and charlatans out there all over the place trying to get your money. And I really, I believe that I'm going to do my best to keep people from getting fleeced. So everybody that speaks as somebody that either I know personally, or I've known about, or I've worked with, done business with, or someone on my committee has also worked with them. So
which is
that's really important.
I think that is important. I have almost every week for Free Advice Friday, I get at least one email from someone saying, this person reached out to me, or I talked to this person. Do you know anything about this company? And while I am not the better of other people's services, if I've worked with them personally, I'm always happy to put a good word in for them. But I think that is one of the hard things, that as a author and as someone who's got a book out, so many authors are being sent emails for new marketing. Oh, I can republish your book and sell thousands of copies. I was talking to Stephen Altman last night about companies that say, for $1,000, I'll make your book a bestseller.
Right.
What
Can't do that. You can't say that.
Well, and what they're doing in many cases is they are taking your book, putting it in a ultra niche, often not honest category on Amazon, and then they're pushing 15 sales on a day.
But you're number one.
You're a number one. I was just talking to him about how there was a book that they wanted bestseller, and I parted ways because I was not willing to do some of these things. And this person went with a company for $1,000 who said, I will make you a bestseller. And they put them in printing supplies and pushed out the book on one day with a sale. And they got that orange banner that says #1 bestseller on Amazon, which changes, by the way.
And so they did their job.
So
I mean, they can say
they can say they did their job. This person was a bestseller, but then he came back to me a month later and said, I am not selling any books.
Right.
I sold 15 books in the one day that I hit
Right.
bestseller, but I'm not selling any books. And so I think that kind of highlights that sometimes, even though companies may fall to the letter of the law of what they've said that they would do, it doesn't mean that it's not something you typically recommend to a friend unless that was really important to them. And so I think there are so many times. Now with that, there are, how many amazing websites and people and that are so good, but it's hard when you're new, just like going into a conference for the first time. It's hard
to know what you're even supposed to be. You don't even know the questions to ask, the right ones.
Exactly.
Which is why I remember so fondly our first few sessions is I just learned what I didn't. I learned the questions I needed to ask. You were there. I mean, honestly, you led me down by the hand, and it's been a long time for me. And I did take a year off for a personal reason, but now I'm with a publisher, and I'm exactly in the right place I need to be with a publisher. It wasn't ready before. I didn't have the right product, for one thing,
right?
But now I do, and so it's exciting the way it's evolved. But it's taken some time. I could have gone faster, I suppose, but I have other things that I do in my life.
But most writers are not full-time writers right away. They're kind of doing it, and I think, and I want to talk a little bit more about that. Is that, as you said, it took some time, and by time he does not mean 6 months, years. It took years of honing your craft and not sticking to one book. I think this is something a lot of authors have a hard time with, is they feel like their book wasn't as successful, so they redo it and they republish the same book. They refine, they republish, they relaunch.
New covers.
Yes. And that is a strategy if you have a specific point to it. But one of the things that I've always admired about you is you did that along the way, which did better your books, but you also kept writing, you kept creating new content. And it was in fact the new content that caught the eye of your publisher. Yeah.
And both you and Amy kept saying, don't go backwards.
Yes.
Just keep going forwards. And because, I can't tell you how awful my writing was in the first book. I mean, the story was great. I love the story. It's still a really great story, but I mean, I just didn't know what I was doing. And it was my own fault. I was too stupid to figure it out and do it the right way. But I exist now to help people not make those same mistakes.
Well, and I think everyone has to start somewhere. So you have to start, but also you have to learn and grow.
Right.
Just, who wants to be stagnant? And so it was the continuation of writing. But that, I think, is an important lesson for other authors, is that you can't just have one book. Unless you're using a book for nonfiction or business, like if there's a purpose and you got it out, you did what you needed to. If you want a career as an author, you have to keep writing.
Right.
And whether you publish it or not, I mean, I certainly.
And you guys, New Shelves Books, was always saying, Alan, you don't want to spend all this money to promote this one book if when they're finished, there's nothing else for them to read of yours. Because otherwise, then when it comes out a year later or 2 years later, they're going to forget about you. You got to start all over again to build that, get those fans back.
Yes. And we talk about that a lot on Free Advice Friday. We talk about a loss leader and how sometimes you do have a loss leader, and that's okay. It's okay to maybe not make your money back on marketing one book if you've got other streams of income. If it's a business book that then you are leading into a whole platform, or if you've got a series and you're making money on the series, but you have to strategically do that, not just throw money out the window. And we also talk about more and more, and I'm sure you agree, creating your email list, creating your fan base, so that even if they do kind of forget about you, you have a way to get back in touch.
Right. And I know that that email list, is a bugaboo for a lot of people, and it had been for me for a long time. I'm just starting to rethink that, of course, now. And now that I have a publisher, there's a different, I mean, all my systems are changing, all the strategies are. So, and I will be using that, but I have a purpose now for it. And so, yeah.
And I'm curious, and I'm sure a lot of people at home are curious, what are some of the differences that you're already seeing, the differences from self-publishing to having a publisher? What has changed for you as an author?
Wow. I now have a huge team behind me. And I have a series of deadlines, because I'm writing 2 series for them, 4 books each. Yeah. And they're very different. And so just the writing is another.
It's more stringent.
It's
you have other people's deadlines to follow.
Yeah, and they have a word count that they need, and so mine were a little short. And they said, you're going to have to, make them longer. That's fine. And so I did that. But the thing that and also I spent 2 hours with the cover people the other day, because my first book's coming out soon with them. And that was very exciting to work with a different cover. I mean, I had a great cover artist before, but this is something,
different,
a whole different thing, and I'm rebranding and all that. So there's that. And then there's a whole marketing thing, and then there's a whole author profile thing that I'm working on with them. Things that I've learned from you, but now I'm implementing in a different way.
Well, and you have a whole team of people, and also, for better or worse, you also don't have full control. So there are people who can override you. And I think this is one of the things in traditional publishing that some people really hate, but some people really need, not saying you, but some people really need, is that overriding. I understand this is what you'd like your cover to look like, but that's not what's in the industry. So this is what we're going to do. And I think that's something that some people really, they need someone to keep them from. I have to
say that maybe I'm the exception, but I really love that someone else is in control of this. I really do, because they're smarter than I am about this. They know who their readers are. They know where they are. They know what they're going to relate to. I might think this is just the perfect thing, but honestly, if what they are telling me is going to sell my books and get them into the hands of readers, that's what I want.
Right.
That's really what I want. And so I don't want to fight anything, but I have to say, they're super, super flexible with me about it. And they're listening to my input, and I got to pick the designer that I wanted for the cover. I mean, they showed me several of them, different styles. And I said, I don't like that one. I love this one. It was and I think much more collaborative than I expected.
Yes. And I think that now your publisher is kind of a mid-level. This is not.
They're indie. She considers herself
indie. So this is not Harper Collins, who's basically going to say, shut up and stand.
Yeah. We never want to see you again.
I'm kidding. Harper Collins. I'm kidding.
But it's true.
It's very much, this is our business and you will do what we say. So I do think not only going from self-published to working with a publisher, but also finding the right publisher fit for you. Some people think they want to work with the big 5.
Of course, everybody wants to.
Yeah,
it's like,
but do you really?
It's irresistible. Well, because they don't know. Every person, I guarantee it, who writes a book or a short story, they think they're ready for the publisher, and they all they can see is the top. Well, probably 3 now, right? But there used to be a few.
There's 4. There's 4 as of right now, but they're all merging.
But yeah, they see themselves right there. And why can't I? I mean, J.K. Rowling was homeless and blah, blah, blah. Look at her. And, you know, there's a million stories. Well, not a million, it's like 6 stories of people like that.
Well, yeah, but they are
They all think they can
making,
do
well, and yes, and everyone has the shot of doing it. But
Sure.
let's be very clear that a lot of those people did have talent, they had good stories, but they also had a ton of luck.
Yes.
A lot of just dumb luck happened to be in the right place, the right time. Now, I will say, you can only get lucky if you put yourself out there.
Exactly.
And the people who make it big, like J.K. Rowling, like E.L. James, like they put themselves out there and gave themselves the opportunity.
Mhm.
But also, these overnight successes were years in the making.
They were, right.
They were years in the making. And this is one of the little secrets, if you will, in the publishing industry, is that publishers only hope to break even with 90% of their books. 90%. They're hoping to break even.
Right.
They're hoping to make money on the top 10%.
I mean, they're rolling the dice.
Exactly.
When
And
they
that
sign
is,
you up.
and that is how it works. So this is why new authors, they're trying to get you on for kind of the lowest cost possible. They'll sign you and they're hoping that you are their golden ticket. And if you are, then they'll put the marketing and the money
Right.
and
There'll be a little wait and see with me, I'm sure.
Yes.
I mean, you know.
Well, and even no matter the publisher, from indie to mid to large press, that is kind of how it works, is they kind of give you this idea of like a timeline, or we'll give you, for big publishing, the top 5, typically there's a 90-day window where they say, we're going to give you 90 days after your first book comes out, see what your sales are like, seeing reviews, seeing what people think.
Sure.
And then if it starts to be a profitable venture, then they keep up with you. But otherwise, they don't. Or when the next book comes out,
right,
they take over more control. So I'm not saying, as you said, you like someone else being in more control. You like not having to make the decisions. And I think you are the type of creative that works well with deadlines.
Love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love the new genre that I'm writing in. I started this series in romance.
Mm-hmm.
And as a matter of fact, I started this at a conference. We were sitting around the fireplace afterwards, a bunch of authors, and there were some publishers there. Robin Cutler from Alan BPN was there. And we were sitting around talking about, I said something stupid. We were drinking scotch. Let's face it, it was Scotland. and I said, oh, how hard could it be to write a romance novel? And everybody's jumped on me and said, what do you mean? It's really hard. I said, come on, I'll do it. And I said, as a matter of fact, I even have a plot. And Robin said, oh, really? I'd like to hear that plot. She knew darn well I didn't have any idea what I was talking about. And I came up with this idea off the top of my head. And she said, Ellen, that's a pretty good story. You ought to write it. She was serious. And I did. And by the way, 3-4 years later, she's my publisher for that book. Yeah,
isn't that fun?
And now it went from romance now to urban fantasy, which I'm really loving. I think it's my niche. I really do.
And what I love about this is you kind of went broad with romance, right? But then you found your space within, and then it transformed.
Yeah, because there's a lot of fantasy already in it. And that's why she said, hey, this would be easy to be
urban. Well, and let's be honest too, that if you'd never written a book, if you'd never thought about it, you wouldn't be going, I think urban fantasy, that's what I'm going to write.
Right. I didn't know what that was really.
Yeah.
And she's read all my books, so she knew exactly what I had to bring to the table, and she knew that I was solid, I guess.
Solid enough.
Solid enough. Yeah. Right.
Yes. And I do think that's an important part too, is the relationships that you build, but knowing what you need as a creative, whether you need control. I have clients who say, I need to be in control of my project. I want to decide. And that is why self-publishing is perfect for them. But then there are people like you who, I want to say, I want my voice heard, but I can't make the decisions. I
was a control freak for most of my life, and I am happy not to be one anymore. My adult career was advertising, and I got to, tell my clients what to do. And I wrote, commercials and stuff like that. And I said, this is what it needs to be. And pretty much I got my way. And, got results because I, kept some clients. But now I'm just so happy to just relinquish all that. As a matter of fact, my publisher is actually staying, as you know,
Yes.
with me right now in the house during the conference for a couple of nights with her husband. And we were talking, I had sent her my latest thing, and I hadn't heard whether she liked it or not. And I know she had it. And she said, oh, I've started it. And then I knew she had a long plane ride from the West Coast here. And I thought, so the first thing we sat down, we were chit-chatting and everything. I said, did you like the book or not?
Yeah.
And she said, we have to talk about a few changes. And you know what? The changes are so incredibly perfect. They're exactly what it needed. This is so much better now. And I got up in the middle of the night and I retooled it.
And that's what you needed.
That's what I needed. Yeah.
And
I
I
needed
think
somebody
that's
to
a
show
beautiful
me,
thing.
because it made it more of an urban fantasy. It was still too much something else. Anyway, I love what we ended up with. And this is just like 48 hours ago.
Right. And I love that. And I think, again, finding the right fit for you, finding the right thing. So at New Shelves, of course, we do publishing consulting. And I have some authors who say, I want to be self-published. I want the control, but I need more structure. And that's what I do. I give them deadlines. I give them homework. I give them homework, and then I follow up, and I'm like, so it's Tuesday. Did you get this done? And sometimes it's yes, sometimes it's no. But I'm glad that you poked at me, because otherwise, instead of being a week without working on it, it would be 2 months.
Yeah.
And so sometimes people need that in between, but knowing what you need to be successful, I think, is one of the first steps of finding out what you want to pursue. And that's why I always ask when I first get on the phone with people, and you guys know this, I always say, it's all about, what are your goals? Right. What do you hope to accomplish?
Right.
I was talking to someone last night who said, I wanted to hold a beautiful book in my hands. And
he
did that. He did. It was cool.
And he's a guy from our conference.
I know. And so
you've had some really good successes from people from our 2019 conference.
Yeah, we've worked with Stephen, with John, and a couple other people. And it has been such a joy to help people reach their goals. Not pushing my goals for them. And
they were the kind of person that came to the conference the first time because they were writers at any stage. Yes. And they were at the beginning stage. And some of them, I think they were almost done with the book, but not quite. But and then this was perfect because you led them down the path to, and got finishing.
Well, like Stephen had been working on his book for 8 years, and he goes, it's just not done. And I said, well, if I'm opening up my schedule for you in October, then it has to be done by October. So can you commit to that? And he told me last night, he said, it stressed me out so much, but it's what I needed.
Yes.
Because then we move forward, and now he has this book that was just sitting for 8 years. And now it's real. And he said he probably will never, no big dreams of doing 8 years.
But he'd like to probably sell more.
Sure.
Right? So that's the next step.
Always working and marketing and finding his audience. So I think.
Well, it's funny. A couple of friends who are coming to the conference, and we're offering opportunities to pitch an agent, to pitch a publisher. Right? Yes. And so they'll say, well, I want to pitch a publisher. And I'll say, well, are you prepared to write a few more books? Well, I think, I'm not so sure. I said, don't bother pitching. They're not going to spend their time with you if you're not committed to well, and they don't want, it's a business.
Well, it's a business, and it's a long-term relationship. This is not a fling.
No, it's not a fling.
Well, and as I have been loud and proud that three books, whether they be individual novels, but even better, a series, a minimum of 3 is when it can really take off. And I love that you mentioned that your 2 series were picked up with 4 book contracts.
4 books each. Yeah.
So,
actually 4 books are on my contract, but she's really open-ended about my urban fantasy thing, because she says, I think this is what you really want to write. And she said, would you be interested in writing more? I said, absolutely. I mean, this is just, it flows. I love it.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, and I do think so. Just a little anecdotal proof that I am always right.
Okay.
I'm kidding.
Yeah.
But just that someone else is saying series sell and more books.
Yeah.
You can't, very rarely does someone come out with I don't know, Catcher in the Rye, and that becomes
it.
the bestseller for the rest of their lives and
Right.
into eternity.
Right.
We can't rest on that. We really can't hope on that.
Mm-mm.
So I think that's really important.
Yeah.
Well,
I have one other thing I would like to say, just
Yeah.
before we close up.
Mhm.
You mentioned it, and it was something that's really dear to my heart, and that is, if you're an author, well, if you're anybody, but if you're particularly if you're an author, you have to get out there. You have to go meet other people. You have to go to a conference, pick one, find one, small one. Start out with a small one, maybe, and just go. Don't be afraid. I mean, it's a daunting experience. It can be, because you really don't know what you're getting into. But try to find a good one. She'll help you find find the right one for you. But Keri will. But every time, I mean, you can be successful. I've been in my own business for most of my life. And I could be sitting at home, working from home, be very content, making enough money, fine. But the moment I put myself out somewhere, I meet someone who changes some part of my life or enhances my life in some way. It doesn't need to be like a new client, or doesn't have to be a businessy thing where I'm selling them something, but they open up a whole new opportunity.
Sure.
And when I went to I keep going back to my Dublin Writers Conference. When I got there, I left with a handful of friends who have stayed very close for the last 5 years.
Yeah.
Really close. I visited them many times back and forth on both continents. And I met my producing partner I got into the movie business because of that. I started my own writers conference. I met you guys. I met my publisher at one in Scotland. I mean, this is how it happens. You can't expect people to find you in your living room or in your office where you're typing. It's not going to happen.
No.
Just get yourself out there.
Yeah, connect. And also, if you're looking for conferences, you can absolutely reach out to me. But also, if anyone's interested, typically conferences book out speakers a year in advance. So I already, number one, I'm booking. So if you are looking for a conference speaker, but if you want to know, you'll have a friendly face there. I already know quite a few conferences I'll be at over the next year.
And I know where I'm speaking. I know I'm speaking in Scotland in March again at the Scottish Writers Conference.
Yeah.
So
if you want to go to Scotland, if you want to go to the cool one,
come see me. Right.
I'll try. And I think absolutely, if you have a friend, if you know Alan, if you want to know Alan, because
please.
Alan's really fun.
I would love to know you.
Start reaching out to the people that you've enjoyed hearing from and find out where they're going to go, because then you'll have a friendly face. You have someone to chat with, and you don't have to be alone when you go for the first time. You can bring a friend. I had someone who brought her best friend, and she goes, she doesn't write, but she came here for the food. And I said, you know what? That's fine. It's really good food. But get out there. I love that, Linda.
So I've rebranded now. I am Alan at gibsonglobal.co. That's my new thing, Gibson Global. And it's all about all of my different careers, but specifically about writing. And it's very exciting.
Well, congratulations. And thank you for having us here and allowing us into your office. It's a gorgeous, like, porch writing area. It is. Look, he'll show you.
There's my desk. And then it goes over there. And that's the 18th hole of a golf course. So I never thought I would be old enough to live on a golf course, but I love it.
I love it. Well, and I think one of the things is we were talking about is create your space, whether it be your space for writing or be your space for community, create your space. And so that's kind of the challenge this week, I think, is find someone to connect with, whether it be online or in person, create your space. And if you have questions for Alan, you can reach him. Say you want me
to type it in?
Yes, type it in.
I have no problem doing that.
Oh, look, I didn't even see we have questions. Again, this is not.
And it's not .com, it's .co.
Perfect. And let's see.
Not a typo.
We have. All right. Do we get to know who your publisher is?
Oh, yeah. My publisher's name is Robin Cutler. She's the president of LMBPN, Worldwide Publishing. And they specialize in thrillers and fantasy and urban fantasy, and they're just now starting some romance, I think. But they have a nice stable of authors right now. Yeah.
And you may notice, or you may recognize Robin's name, because Robin was previously one of the figureheads of Ingram Spark.
Well, she was the creator of it and the director of Ingram Spark, which if anybody who's published at all, has touched their lives.
That's right. If you self-publish and if you are printing on demand, Ingram Spark is the place. And you know that we talk about Ingram Spark all the time.
And prior to that, she helped create Create Space at Amazon, which is now Kindle.
Yes, KDP.
KDP,
That's
yeah.
right.
So I mean, she's been in this thing from the very beginning.
Yes.
And she knows where people need to go to get the right readers and how to reach them.
So not to rub it in, but that's who we're hanging out with this weekend.
Exactly, right.
And one more question before we go, because again, I didn't see these. Does your new publisher tell you what to write, or can you suggest what genre or topic based off of your ideas? How does that work?
Well, she is, as I maybe said before, she had read all my books before. And so we were kind of doing a dance for a while to see whether, I was really going to be serious about writing and whether it was just kind of fun stuff. So she knew that I did romance and she liked my romance, but she said, what I publish romance isn't our big strong suit. So, but I know your books and I know there's enough fantasy in it and magic in it that you could very easily probably add more of that and minimize the romance. So did they tell me what to do? No, not specifically, but she said that that's what they would like me to do. So that's how the contract is written. I'm writing urban fantasy. So in a sense, they're doing that, but she is guiding me on the structure of it. And that's what they should do, right? I mean, that's their job.
So she's not demanding what you write, although they have a contract for the genre and the overall idea. But it is more of Alan writes his story and then he gets constructive feedback and criticism. And sometimes there are things going, no, we really can't have that in there.
Yeah.
We need to change. And so it's really a collaborative effort.
And they have a beta team, that'll go over this thing. And they did what they call a sniff test before I got the contract. And they said, this is good. And he's going to be good. We're going to like him, but we need to work on it. And I expected that. I think you should expect that, right?
You should always expect feedback and be open.
So, and there was some feedback about characters. There was a feedback about the middle section. There always is about the middle section.
The middle.
But anyway, we addressed those and we're moving forward. So it's great. I don't feel, to answer this person's question, I don't feel like they're telling me what to do. If that's kind of how I interpret the question.
Sure. It's more, well, and they agreed on terms first, which I think is, so you either are querying a specific book you've already written, or you're creating a contract based around a previous set idea. They're not saying, hey, Alan, we want to hire you to write 4 books. We'll let you know the genre later. And then they come back later and they're like, it's a yoga book.
Right.
Get to studying.
Right.
It's not so much like that. It's very much that, no, they may suggest, they may say,
Right. I doubt they're going to ask me to do that, even though they probably don't know that I'm a former yoga instructor and certified.
I did not know that.
See,
learn
picking up my thing. Oh, right.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining us. We will put the replay up. I think it was just a fun experience to have someone who's been run through the gamut of so many different types of publishing and to get that experience. So thank you. And the Writers Conference is every year. So anyone who misses it this year.
Right. We're gonna do it again next year. This would have been our 4th year if we hadn't had COVID. But then again, I would have had my movie produced by now if it hadn't been for COVID either.
All the things.
And then we were shooting it in Hungary, so then we had a World War III going on. So we had a lot of obstacles to that.
A lot of things.
It'll all happen. It's gonna be fine.
Well, you can certainly look it up, get on the newsletter list so you can know about next time. It's right here in Shepherdstown, West Virginia.
And please, send me an email. I love meeting new writers and other writers, and
Alan's a fun friend to have.
Yeah, we've been friends for a long time.
All right, you guys, thank you for joining us. We'll see you next weekend for Free Advice Friday, same time, 10 a.m. Eastern. Bye.
Bye-bye.